the very last requirement of this problem, we'll call it requirement 7 because of the typo here, is to look ahead, fast forward in other words, and to when the bond is now matured. We're assuming that we followed the contract as it has been stated, made all of the interest payments along the way, correctly accounted for all the accruals needed at the end of the subsequent years, and so in essence we would have repeated these over and over and over again for all of these payments, and now we've made our last payment and it's time to pay the bond off. So this is actually very easy. At the end of the life of the bond, the only thing left on our books associated with the bond in group 1 anyways is $1 million long-term liability, and it's actually not long-term anymore once we hit that last year because it's going to be payable within 1 year, so it's actually a short-term liability. But what happens, and I don't know the exact date that this becomes payable, I think it's January 1st of 2021, we have to actually come up with the $1 million. So the $1 million is going to go, and let me just remind you what we did when we originally recorded this bond right here. We put into a long-term liability account. The bond payable would have $1 million sitting in it, right? This is a liability. We owe this, right? So this is out here on our liability. We're going to make this go away. It's now mature. We're going to cancel it out. We debit this account, which will bring it to 0. So the bond payable will be debited for the $1 million that we are going to pay off with cash. So this is to retire the bond at maturity. Very simple. Okay, that's what we do for group 1. Group 2, also very, very simple. Again, we've fast forwarded, assuming we've made all these payments. Everything's hunky-dory. We would round this off, and the carrying value would be $1 million. So what that means is the discount that we initially recorded up here when we issued the bond, it's actually a premium, sorry. Premium had $77,212. The bond payable had $1 million. And we recorded that premium going away a little bit by a little bit. See, this would be the account. It'd be down to 0. We'd round this down to 0. So the premium is 0. The bond carrying value would be $1 million. So what that means is this 77,212 is now 0. We have this $1 million left, and we have to pay this off. Just like we did up here, we're going to pay off group 2 bonds by debiting bonds payable, and the only way you can get rid of that is by paying cash. That fulfills our portion of the obligation. And so we would, on January 1st, I think it's 2021, we would debit bonds payable for the $1 million, and we would credit cash for the same $1 million. There, our balance sheet is cleared up. There's nothing left with this bond. This is gone. This is gone. The balance sheet's correct. Same thing would happen with the group 3 bonds that were issued at a discount on January 1st, 2021. The bonds payable would be, let me just take you back, right? What happened when we originally issued those bonds is the bond payable went into our records for $1 million, but we had this valuation account, the contra account, made it go down. The carrying value was less than $1 million. If we look at our amortization table, this was the carrying value. The discount was here. This would have sat in our balance sheet as a debit. Got smaller and smaller and smaller. We would have rounded this to 0. It's now being all paid off. Carrying value got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's now maturity. This is the $1 million we owe, which again is currently sitting on our long-term section, and we've been converted to current because now we're in the last payment period of $1 million on the liability section. The only way to get rid of that is to debit the bonds payable and to actually come up with cash. That's it. We've made it through the entire bond problem. I really hope you've taken the time to go through these steps and to really understand the mechanics, not just to memorize a formula, but to really logically wrap your mind around the conceptual framework laid for us by the FASB and why it is that we do it this way. It's very logical if you look back at the matching principle.